NASCAR fans have been waiting years for this moment. On Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, speaking on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio's The Morning Drive, Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer made an announcement that nobody saw coming. "It's on the table," Sawyer said when asked about increasing horsepower in the next-gen car. But here's the kicker that really stunned everyone. He revealed that these discussions aren't just happening occasionally, they're taking place daily. "We are working closely with all the stakeholders in the industry, and as I said, the collaboration has been better than ever in our sport on all topics. This represents the most concrete signal yet that NASCAR is seriously reconsidering its horsepower stance after years of resistance." Mike Bagley from MRN Radio immediately took to social media, posting on X, "NASCAR SVP of Competition. Elton Sawyer just said on NASTMD and NASCAR, increasing the horsepower on Cup cars is on the table and is being discussed daily." The timing of this announcement couldn't be more significant. For the past decade, NASCAR has been moving in the opposite direction, systematically reducing horsepower levels since 2015. Back then, engines were capable of producing over 900 horsepower. Today, except for high-banked drafting tracks, NASCAR caps engines at just 670 horsepower. That's a dramatic reduction that has frustrated drivers and fans alike. But Sawyer's revelation goes deeper than just acknowledging the possibility. He provided specific details about actions already taken behind the scenes. Sawyer said, "This particular one had a team owner council meeting last week came up, and we discussed that. Working closely, I know Senior Vice President of Innovation and Racing Development, John Probst, had a conversation with our engine builder to see what we could do, how that would look, and what changes would need to be made." The fact that John Probst, NASCAR's Senior Vice President of Innovation and Racing Development, has already been in direct discussions with engine builders shows this isn't just idle speculation. These are concrete steps toward potential implementation. The conversations have moved beyond theoretical discussions to practical feasibility assessments. Current horsepower levels tell a story of systematic reduction over the past decade. The next-gen cars produce 670 horsepower under normal circumstances, while the superspeedway package restricts this power even further to just 510 horsepower, combined with a 7-inch rear spoiler. Compare this to the previous generation Gen 6 race cars that produce 750 horsepower, and you can see why drivers and fans have been pushing for change. NASCAR's historical justification for these reductions has centered around two primary arguments: attracting new manufacturers to the sport and controlling costs. The sanctioning body has maintained that the 670 horsepower package creates a more level playing field that appeals to potential automotive partners. However, this reasoning has never satisfied the racing community. The resistance to horsepower increases hasn't been universal within NASCAR's leadership. Mike Ford, NASCAR's Managing Director of Racing Communications, addressed the topic on the May 7th episode of the Hauler Talk podcast, providing the first hint that change might be coming. "Well, I'm sure that's going to come up too," Ford said. "I'm sure that horsepower will come up this weekend, and that's something that we're going to look at seriously." But Ford also established realistic boundaries for any potential increases. You hear levels of 900, 1,000 horsepower, whatever. I don't know if that's not on the table just because of the cost. But there's some conversation of, can you go up to 750? That's something that I'm sure we'll discuss with the drivers too. I don't want to make any promises or get anyone's hopes up, but that is, we seriously listen to the drivers and their feedback, and we'll see what we can do there. The 750 horsepower target isn't arbitrary. It represents a sweet spot that balances performance improvements with practical considerations. This number gained significant credibility when Doug Yates, CEO of Roush Yates Engines, weighed in during an early May interview with SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Yates stated, "So, if we were to increase the power from 670 horsepower to about 750 horsepower, that probably wouldn't be much of a change for us." Yates' statement carries tremendous weight in this discussion. His company powers 17 Ford teams in NASCAR, and they've already tested 750 horsepower setups in short track races. The current V8 engines, capable of hitting 10,000 RPM, can handle this increase without requiring major modifications or significant cost increases. This technical feasibility removes one of NASCAR's primary objections to horsepower increases. Driver support for increased horsepower has been overwhelming and vocal. Three-time Cup Series champion Joey Logano didn't mince words when expressing his position. "We want more power. It increases tire wear. It makes the track wider, and it's more badass." Logano's comment captures the essence of why drivers believe more horsepower would improve racing quality. Denny Hamlin, who serves as both a driver for Joe Gibbs Racing and co-owner of 23XI Racing, has been particularly vocal about this issue. Hamlin said, "Could we at least go back to the 750 horsepower, which is only 100 more than what we got now, which would at least be a step in the right direction?" Hamlin's dual perspective as both driver and team owner adds credibility to his advocacy for change. The opposition within NASCAR leadership has been led primarily by John Probst, the same official now tasked with exploring horsepower increases. In 2024, Probst explained his concerns about power increases. "If you add the horsepower, you add the cost, then you see if it is better. There's no guarantee you get there, and it would be any better. And I think there's some evidence that shows as we add horsepower, they run further apart." This philosophical divide within NASCAR's leadership reflects the complexity of balancing multiple competing interests. Cost management, manufacturer relations, competitive balance, and fan satisfaction all factor into these decisions. However, Sawyer's recent comments suggest the balance may be shifting toward addressing driver and fan concerns. Fan reaction to Sawyer's announcement has been explosive across social media platforms. The response ranges from cautious optimism to demands for immediate action. One fan captured the frustration with NASCAR's pace of change. "Then why hasn't it happened yet?" Another expressed impatience with continued discussions. "Stop discussing and just do it, especially at the short tracks." The enthusiasm for increased horsepower extends beyond just wanting more power. Fans see it as a potential solution to broader racing quality issues. Better be 900 horsepower minimum, but imagine the marketing on 1,000 horsepower. Would feed generations. One fan posted, recognizing both the performance and promotional potential of higher horsepower numbers. Some fans have connected the horsepower discussion to NASCAR's golden era, when raw power defined the sport's identity. The reference to Bill Elliott's 212.809 miles per hour speed record at Talladega in 1987 reminds everyone of what NASCAR once represented in terms of pure speed and power. A return to higher horsepower levels could help recapture some of that excitement. However, not all fan reactions have been uniformly positive. Some express skepticism about whether horsepower alone can solve the current racing issues. One fan wrote, "HP isn't fixing the air problem, just allows the trailing car to recover their momentum a little quicker." The technical implementation of any horsepower increase faces several practical challenges. Sawyer acknowledged these complexities in his radio appearance. He said, "As we talked about before, there's the efficiencies that come with our rules and regulations that we have today, and if you look at engines, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's a tall mountain to climb, but we're willing to do that to give our race fans the best product." The implementation won't be uniform across all track types. Sawyer specifically mentioned that super speedways would be excluded from any horsepower increases, maintaining the current restrictor plate package for safety reasons. This selective approach makes sense given the different racing dynamics at various track configurations.